I have the fabulous Barb Monson. Welcome, Barb.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, so Stages and Stories, we're all about kind of the behind the scenes with Warrior Unchained Live and who's going to be on the stage. So I'll let you introduce yourself and talk a bit about what you do.
Sure. Thank you. I am actually a leadership consultant, and I know that the event is tailored towards entrepreneurs and business owners, but my take on that, I spent 26 years in corporate finance, and I did everything from starting out as a temp, in a temp job as a clerk, doing the filing for the clerks. I wasn't even a clerk. And when I left corporate finance, I was a CFO. So I know a thing or two about overcoming challenges and navigating, weird spaces and trying to forge a path. And so I've witnessed a lot in the workplace. And I know I take that and apply it not only to entrepreneurs, but people that are still in corporate. I help them with their employee disengagement, with turnover, with the changing workforce expectations that are going on right now. There's a lot out there, and all leaders struggle. You don't have to be a corporate leader to be a leader. All leaders struggle, and so I help bring them tools that maybe they haven't seen before, because I like to do things differently and to help them out, get them out of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I can see the parallels between corporate and being an entrepreneur because you're running everything. You're in charge. You're the leader of the pack, so to speak, whether you're in corporate or you're doing your own thing. So I can see where there's a crossover there with the information that you help people with.
Well, there is, and I think a lot of us step into business ownership with the glorified side of it, like, oh, I get to call the shots. I get to have coffee at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday if I want. But there's another side to that coin, isn't
Yeah,
there? And
yeah,
nobody talks about that except those of us who are kind of knee deep in it.
right.
So yeah, there's the same challenges that kind of hit me in the corporate world. It's a different setting running my own business, but the mind game is still there. And a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
it is just navigating the mind game.
yeah. I mean, you can sit there and wear your pajama pants. Not that I am right now, but you can wear pajama pants, on a Zoom. But you still have to show up. You have to have accountability. You have to work your calendar. You have to have goals and accountability.
Right. Well, and the unique thing about being a business owner is you probably experienced this too. Nothing exists unless I create it.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, the work piles up when you work for someone else if you're on vacation, but there's other departments that are still going, all cylinders are firing, other people create things and you're just plugging into it. But for yourself, yeah, it's nothing exists unless you create it.
yeah, absolutely. So shifting from you moving to corporate to being your own boss, what are some challenges or things that you've had to overcome and conquer to get to where you're at now?
I think even just making that change was probably what I conquered. A lot of people have these incredible, inspiring, and dynamic stories of some major hurdle. And for me, it's actually the opposite, which I think a lot of us fall into, if we're being honest. I was just an ordinary person, not the top of my class, not the bottom of my class, didn't do extraordinary things. I'm tenacious and I was always plugging away. I was always working, just a workhorse. But my identity was tied into who I served and how much I got done.
Hmm.
And the titles. I didn't realize it until I gave up my CFO title, how much of my identity and my ego was wrapped up in that. Not from a pride standpoint, but just like I didn't know who I was without all of that. Also, being raised at a time where children were to be seen and not heard, and then
Mm-hmm.
always working in male dominated environments, I really, even though I had success, I really never found my voice. Didn't know who I was, and I just showed up and reacted to whatever was demanded of me. So I think the big challenge to overcome was finding the people that know the tools, the techniques of how you have to shift your mindset, because it's more than your calendar looking different. There's a whole different mindset that comes with running your own business, and you absolutely have to have confidence, and you have to know your identity, and you have to shift. You have to make a huge shift. So
Yeah.
for 6 months, I didn't know how to introduce myself, and I was
Wow.
embarrassed because I didn't have something fantastic to fall back on. And I think the main thing I overcame was being super comfortable with who I am, regardless of what it looks like or
Mm.
sounds like, or if I looked like I was out of my mind for walking away from something that a lot of people try to get. So I think the conquering was just really being good with who I am outside of all that other stuff.
Well, and like you said too, you said you were in a more male-dominated world, and so entrepreneurship, many of us walk into a very female-dominated space. I don't know the statistics on it, but I believe it's a pretty generous leap. So how is that as far as expectations of walking into different networking? It's a different vibe going to events that are 98% female. Like, what was that like?
Oh, it's amazing. And just to be clear, I always did have an appreciation for the men that I worked with. We
Of
can learn a
course.
lot from men, because women know, this is a generalization, but women know how to get things done, but men know how to navigate the world.
Mm.
And so I always took it as learning. Every challenge made me better. But wow, to network with women and do business and do life together with women, the conversations are different, especially with women who are working on themselves and they're creating something. The conversations are elevated. They're a higher level. You talk about your whole self, not just your work. You talk about
Right.
everything. And I just think that all the layers of us as women, we bring all of those to our networking. And it's just really a beautiful way to incorporate everything that we are.
Yeah, and it's just different styles. Yeah, we definitely have a lot to learn from men and women. And I found the differences in that I think men have an easier time with the ask. You can be networking with somebody like, oh, yeah, here, I have this thing. Are you interested? Women, on the other hand, I find we take a step back. We really want to know somebody before we put that out there. So it's a different style of doing things. And yeah, it's fascinating to see the difference of how we all do things. Not that one's right or wrong, they're just different.
Right, right. And yeah, equally valid.
Right, exactly. So, for events that I'm putting on like Warrior Unchained Live, which is predominantly women, we do have some men that come into the space. So it's always interesting to see, who shows up and what they take away from it. So Barb, you'll be speaking on Sunday during like the brunch "What to Do Now" segment, because last year it was basically a 1 day with the VIP night, and the feedback I got was, there were so many incredible speakers, but they left thinking, okay, which piece do I implement now? Like, what do I do next? Like, I don't know, do all this great information, but if you don't have a plan of action, what happens? And so that's where we added on Sunday now for like a brunch. And I thought, oh my God, Barb's gonna be perfect for this, and that's why I invited you to speak. So, talk a little bit about what you'll be bringing to Warrior this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so looking forward to it. I have a talk that I've done a number of times that is easily tailored, whether it's a corporate audience, individuals, entrepreneurs, and so I'm excited to bring it to your audience. I'm calling it. It's not your mama's goal setting,
I love it.
and because a lot of times, I mean, let's be honest, you hear goal setting and you eye roll. And the last time I just gave this talk a couple weeks ago, and I told them I'm boring myself just by saying, hey, do you want to talk about goal setting? No. The answer is always no. Nobody does, not even in January.
Right.
So that it has kind of a negative connotation, but if done properly, we can take all the information from all the other wonderful speakers and implement correctly, it's really about the implementation.
Yeah.
And
Taking
so
action.
any one of us can create a vision board, but if implementation, there are specific ways to approach that. And if you haven't set up your vision or your goal the right way, then implementation is really, really hard. So we can all start, we start all the time. We rarely finish.
Right.
So I really want to help all of the guests that come to the event take what they've learned and learn how to narrow it down so that they can just take a huge step forward and implement successfully.
That's my goal too. When I have all these women in that room, I think to myself, this is great information, but if they don't take action on even one of these things, they just wasted their money. And that's like, it's a fear of mine. I want them to come in and learn. implement and just really excel in their life and business. And that's what it's all about. And so I'm really looking forward to you speaking, and then we'll have a panel afterwards with the other speakers, to ask, what do I do now? What can I implement? So you were there last year. You came to the
Yes.
last Warrior Unchained. Do you want to share what your experience was?
Oh my gosh. It's similar to what others have said. It's an experience like no other that's almost hard to describe. I I have people in my circle now, yourself included. You know how they talk about the five people that you're around the most.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's not really a number of five, but who I spend the most of my time with, many are now friends, dear business associates, and I met them at your event.
Oh wow.
Or there were a couple people there that I knew, but our relationship is now deeper because of it. So I think just knowing that we're not in this alone and making a connection that's actually a real connection,
Yeah.
not just a, hey, we'll have a virtual coffee date, in next month and then forget about each other. It's a real connection. And the second thing, and it was fun. It's fun. It's a learning event, but it's just incredibly fun. And I think what struck me the most, I think that it's an event that's a catalyst for people
Okay.
in different ways. So I had already been on a journey kind of reshaping my identity and going through all those shifts that we talked about. But there were things that I heard during that journey that maybe I wasn't ready for. I wasn't far enough in the process. And then when I came to Warrior, some of what I heard, I've heard before, but it was a catalyst that actually brought it to life for me. So it absolutely solidifies what I already knew and then gave me new resources for the next level that I was ready for. So I think there's truly something for everyone, whether they're an individual business owner or not, if they're working for somebody else. It's a women's conference, it's personal development that applies across the board. And I think there's a catalyst in there for everybody.
Wow, I think that's a great word because I've seen that myself with, other attendees who have attended even the very first Warrior Unchained, and then for me to watch their growth throughout, because we've connected on, like you said, there's relationships that are built during this event that just seem to last. They don't fizzle out, and so I think that's kind of unique, and that's just something that happens in the audience that it's something that I could actually even make happen. As an organizer, that's something that just happens sporadically in the audience. And it's such a cool thing to watch, the collaborations, the
Mhm.
relationships. And even now, excuse me, the first Warrior was in 2019. We're 2020 or 2023 now. And it's the people who are still connected through social media,
Right.
even from that first event. It's really kind of cool from my perspective to see that, like, oh yeah, that's somebody who lived in the town that I was living in, but now they met this person who I met, and they came in like from another state, whether they spoke or they just came as an attendee,
Wow.
and to see that those connections, you're like, wow, how are they connected? And you're like, oh, they were both at Warrior. Holy
Yeah.
crap!
Well,
Yeah,
plus it's an experience. It isn't simply an educational conference. I think the whole thing is an experience. So we're not just sitting there for 8 hours taking notes and
yeah,
going from breakout session to breakout session. It's part learning, part entertainment, part relationship building. Um, and I don't usually go to conferences and laugh that much. So it's just fun. It's fun.
yeah.
It's like a girls' weekend that you don't have to plan or cook.
And that's kind of the point because I know myself. I have undiagnosed ADHD, and I know if I have to just sit there and listen, I'm going to zone out. I'm in my own head. I check out. So if I don't have something to kind of like break it up, and so I do have dance breaks. Last year we went around the room sporadically to come around the train, and everyone made the train around the room and stuff. That wasn't even planned. I was just like, we're just going to do this. Play the song. Let's get up, get everyone on their feet. So that stuff just happens because mostly because I need it, but also I think there's people there that also are like, there's a lot of information, whether it's personal or professional development. It can kind of fry your brain if you're just sitting there for hours on end, just trying to take it all in. You're taking notes. I mean, for me, I get more exhausted from sitting on my computer all day than I do from going out and doing something physical. Like I'm just like wiped at the end of the day. So it's important to
Agreed.
me. Yeah, so it's important for me to add in fun. There's always entertainment after after lunch, whatever that looks like. We just try and get people on their feet and enjoy themselves. Plus, I have a very deep belief that we build relationships based on shared experiences that are fun. You know,
Yes, we do.
yeah, I mean,
Yes, we do.
we can network, we can talk business, but when we build it on, dancing together, even though you're not really talking, there's a connection there that we make. You know, I think about I think about my days when I was young and single, going to the bars and dancing, and you have the drunk girl crying in the bathroom, and everyone's now her best friend. We're gonna
Right.
cheer her on, and you got this girl. Like you become like you just bond over that stuff.
Oh my gosh. The shared experience that's fun could explain. I met my husband on a blind date at a comedy club.
Ah, see,
And it was so much fun that, yeah, I attached the fun to him.
yeah.
And here we are.
Which makes sense because for me, like most people will tell you, a sense of humor is critical in good relationships. And if you're not laughing kind of at the same things, that could be a problem, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah. And that's kind of the idea is have experiences, but you're also learning. And then hopefully everybody implements at the end of the day. So I'm really excited to bring you in on Sunday because I know the value that you bring. Because I don't ever put somebody on my stage who, one, I don't know, and I don't have the utmost faith and respect for to put on that stage. And I don't care if someone's a brand new speaker or if they're seasoned. We have all across the board coming to Warrior and speaking on my stage. And so meeting you, I'm just like, oh, I got to have her at Warrior.
Oh, thank you. That is a huge honor for me. A huge honor. I know who else is on that stage. It's a huge honor.
Uh, yeah, it's amazing, and when I feel like I attract the speakers. So this year we had a huge list that applied, and I had some people that are incredible speakers, and I love that have a huge list, right? So if you're looking at selling tickets, like yeah, that's the person to have. But then there are people that came in that don't have a list, but their story is so impactful. You're like, I got to have that person. They may not sell the tickets as far as like because they don't have like a huge network or whatever, but I know they're going
Right.
to change somebody's life in my audience, and that's what means more to me. Than the person who has the huge list. Maybe that person's the right person next year. I don't know, but
I think that comes across too because your event feels very genuine. And being a guest at it last year, there were certainly services that I purchased, products that I purchased, but it didn't feel like it was a pitch fest. It felt like a genuine, authentic women serving women, women coming together, elevating everyone, and then you can choose your opportunity to go further if you'd like.
yeah. Just when you said that you choose your opportunity, I think of those books back when I was in school where you get to pick kind of the ending.
Yes.
You kind of, choose your ending. And so you kind of have that opportunity because there are different speakers. And so somebody needs this person or another person needs this person. So not every speaker is going to be for every person in the audience. You're going to connect with certain people. And all I ever want is for them to find that one person they needed to hear from. And,
Right.
that's what's important. So, well, awesome. I am excited. So, if you were to give advice to somebody who was maybe on the fence, they're like, I don't know, I know tickets aren't super expensive, but they got to buy maybe they got to get a flight, they have to get a hotel. What would be your advice to somebody who is on the fence about coming to the event?
Oh my goodness. To me, it's such a no-brainer. I'm trying to imagine being on the fence. it's it's if it's a budgetary constraint, if it's a time constraint, all of us are always complaining how we don't have time for ourselves, or we come last, or families come first, and
Hmm.
we don't feel like we're just a resource, not a person. This is your chance to get out of that. And budget wise, I mean, the value, the fact that you don't have to have a VIP ticket to get a whole weekend. It's Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah,
Your meals are covered, um, except for breakfast, which you get in a hotel anyway.
yeah,
But everything is covered, and the amount that you get back, the value is just out of this world. It's out of this world. So I think the world will continue to spin if you step out of it for a few days and dunk yourself into the tank, and you'll come out better. You
I
come
love
out
that.
better. Why would you not want to do that?
Right. I love that. Dunk yourself into the tank. Kind of, you put your toe in a little bit, but no, sometimes you have to just jump in.
Right.
So, real quick before we end, so if you do want a ticket, anyone who's listening, it's warriorunchainedlive.com. September 23rd and 24th is the main event for general admission, only $97. Includes, like Barb mentioned, your meals. It's at the Kalahari in Wisconsin Dells. Again, warriorunchainedlive.com. But I quick want to talk to you, Barb, about things you have coming up and any offers that you have that would also benefit the audience.
Sure. One thing, well, I have something special that they have to be at the event to get
Ooh.
that will kind of bounce off of when we talk about goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to outline exactly what they need to do, but I will have something that is, like I said, specific just for the people who are there live, that they can really get some more help with it and take it and run with it and really make it stick. Um, until then, everything I'm doing is a bit more in the corporate leadership space, but I do have a small video series that I'll share the link. Even if you're not in the corporate space, if you're an entrepreneur, it's called Managing the Unthinkable: What to Do When Your Best Employees Want to Leave. However, I don't let the title, throw you off, because if you're an individual thinking of maybe leaving to either go to another job or start your own business, there are some wonderful self-examination questions in there that you should walk yourself through first. So you can always skip the part of the series that's specific to managers and take that part in for yourself. So I would love to share the link for that if that is of service to anyone, to kind of, look at things differently, to help
Yeah.
look at it a little differently.
Really, as an entrepreneur, eventually the goal is to get to the place where maybe you can bring people in to kind of take off the burden from yourself, bring in VAs. And that's where I think some of this does help, how to manage, because you will have a team at some
Yes.
point. And so you become that team leader, whether it's corporate or as an entrepreneur. And, I think these video series will be very helpful. This way you kind of have the forethought before you do have a team, like, how to retain them and how to make sure you have great communication and all of those things. So yeah, so I would love for you to put the link in there and have
Thank you.
people grab that. Otherwise, everyone who's watching, hopefully we'll see you at Warrior Unchained Live, and link is warriorunchainedlive.com. Otherwise, up in that corner there's a QR code you can scan to grab your general admission tickets. Otherwise, VIP is Friday night, September 22nd. We have Pat Miller from the Idea Collective, Small Business Incubator, coming in, and Susie Moon will be doing a comedy show. So I'm very excited for Susie to come in and do her thing. It is not a G-rated show, so it's kind of one of those, if you have that sense of humor, we want you to stick around on Friday night. Otherwise, you get a good night's sleep, go to bed a little earlier, and see us in the morning on Saturday. But thank you so much for being here, Barb. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be with you in person in September,
Yes,
Wendy. It's going to be great.
I can't wait. I love in-person events. So
Yeah.
cool. All right. Well, we will see you all next time. Bye.